but now that space has been given over to, again, people walking and eating outside. Here's a bus lane. Those are really nice for so that buses don't get stuck in traffic, and making the bus a more rapid, appealing option. So that's a great thing. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, coming back to, this is another kind of opportunity, I think, in Altadena. This one's Mendocino. And this street, again, it's too much space for the cars that are there. The lanes are overly wide. So I'm not saying you shouldn't drive on Mendocino. We can drive on Mendocino, but the lanes are overly wide. We have parking on both sides of the street that isn't really well used. And on part of this street, this section has sidewalks. Part of this street doesn't even have sidewalks. And it's still a popular place for people to like walk their dogs. Like, I use it as a bike route because it's a low traffic street, but I see my neighbors walking their dogs and their kids and their families because it's a low traffic street. So like, here's the kind of thing that's really simple to do. Again, this is cheap and effective. They're overly, so on the top is what it is now. On the bottom is what it could be for just like a little bit of paint. We have these overly wide car lanes, and then we have parking on both sides. I think, for example, and look, this is just to get you thinking. Like, I don't know what the right, you can have hours of community outreach and whatever. I don't know the right things, but these are just things the kinds of things that are possible and frankly are easy and cheap. So you could, we could talk about so you could take, instead of two sides of the street for parking, you could go to parking on one side of the street. And now that's going to give you back like 15 feet of room. And then you can narrow in those car lanes, which, by the way, reduces speeding and collisions. So forget about walking for a minute. Just by narrowing those lanes alone, we reduce speeding, right? Nobody likes speeding. So we're going to go from 15 feet overly wide lanes to something like 10 or 11 foot, which is a standard lane width. And then now we've got room on the sides for like multi-use paths. So these could be multi-use biking and walking paths. Trees, planters, things that, native plants. I mean, the sky's the limit, right? So the point is, when you take back just a little bit of space, we still have places to drive, right? We all want to drive, we all want to get somewhere. But what's the right amount of space for cars? And we have these places where there's just basically wasted space that we can reclaim for the humans. And it's cheap and it's easy. It gets us outside, it makes our community stronger, we get to know our neighbors, we reduce greenhouse gas emissions. On and on. The benefits are just kind of endless. We reduce collisions, we save lives. So the benefits are kind of endless, and the costs are actually really small. You just have to be willing to imagine and willing to do it.
I want to call attention to something you said in passing, but I think is really important, is folks on Mendocino and on plenty of other streets in town are walking and biking. Some people get out there every evening and walk their dog, or they take their route on very wide, very fast streets. They're doing this despite conditions. I think that speaks to the demand for space for people, right? People are making their own space. And in some cases, they're taking their lives in their hands to do it. I don't think that's fair. I don't think it's right. And I know we can do better, and I think your bottom diagram proves it.
Okay.
So I have a question to ask, because I'm not an expert on road and walking surfaces other than the natural surfaces on the trail. But in San Luis Obispo and Santa Barbara and a number of other communities, sidewalks, paths by creeks, some of them suburban paths, some of them distinctly urban paths, are not pavement and not concrete. They're like DG or some other stabilized material that's permeable, so the water goes down. They don't get nearly as hot as pavement or even concrete because of the coloration, and I think because of the surface area, because they tend to have a lot more surface area because of the crenellations. And they don't interfere with trees growing because you haven't put a concrete thing that a root can't grow through. We all like the shade that comes from trees. Can that be a part of what's used for non-car transportation when you do things like that?
Sure.
It's a lot easier on the horses. It's easier on people like me when they go running, because it doesn't have quite the shock that pavement or concrete does.
Much cheaper, right?
I believe it's cheaper. It does require a little more maintenance than maybe asphalt, maybe a little less than, anyway, but it's cheaper to install, and it doesn't require, I mean, I've seen it in Santa Barbara and San Luis Obispo, where it rains even more than here, and yet all those surfaces seem to be in good shape.
Yeah, one bit of good news, going back to something I was mentioning before, that new area plan that includes Altadena, the West San Gabriel Valley area plan. That's a mouthful, but the Altadena chapter is just called Altadena, so that's helpful. But in there is a policy now, and this is from regional planning. This is one department. This is not all the departments agreeing this is the way it ought to be, but it's a start. And you can point to it when you write that letter to your electeds, that the county ought to consider alternative materials to just asphalt to allow for
100%.
particularly equestrians, but
100%.
other modes to
Why
use our
asphalt?
walkways and roadways and such. So it's possible, and the county is taking baby steps from a policy perspective. I think maintenance, I think learning how to do it as a Department of Public Works, these are all hurdles that will need to be overcome, like really practical stuff, like, you know, reticence to do something that they're not used to doing, that's not already part of their maintenance schedule, that's not already a material they order from their vendors. Like, there's a lot that goes into that decision making, but it's certainly possible.
All right, everybody, listen to us for about 40 minutes. Thank you for your patience there. So again, the West San Gabriel Valley Area Plan, and when we actually look back in time, everyone's got different decades of generations where we actually visioned what Altadena mobility should be. And I beg to differ that much of it is still the same.
I'll be here tomorrow.
That has not been implemented.
Oh, okay.
So the West San Gabriel Valley Plan has some actions that we can look at, and we'll make sure everyone gets some information after this panel. But does anyone have a question? Come on up to the microphone.
Well, then maybe we'll see you. We'll see you when you come back.
There's Joan.
Everything okay?
And we have something
You can ask it to anyone you want.
Yes, so I have this
All right, you could see.
passionate idea that we should build a permanent fire break around Altadena that would have a hiking trail and art and some benches on it and would protect our town for generations to come. And it would all be part of the trails.
Great idea, great idea.
Yeah, great idea. I don't know how effective any structure or clearing would be in a fire break. I know personally from watching the progress of the Eaton Canyon fire that no width of area without any vegetation would have prevented the fire from getting into Altadena the way it did. I think one of the main ingredients I mean, obviously the wind and the dryness were, so number one is climate change. And that's staying with us and getting worse. Number two is Edison screwing up. They didn't shut down the power lines. I don't think from what I saw, and I evacuated fairly late, about 3:05 in the morning, I don't think from what I saw that any barrier that we would be agreeable to live with would have prevented any houses from burning. That's just my personal opinion, but I've studied fire breaks for a long time. We used to have them running up and down when I first moved here in 1977. We had them running up and down all the ridges. And I learned shortly after the first fire that happened here, I was from the east, so I didn't know about fire breaks and stuff like that. The fire didn't care very much about the fire break. And we've all read stories about fires going across various freeways in our area. So I love the idea of having art and other activities along the trail. We already have the Altadena Crest Trail. It's fairly close. Some places it's a little above where the last houses are. Some places it's a little below and goes in between. But it's about the place that you described. I think there's a lot we can do with it, but I don't think we can count on that or any expansion of that as a fire break.
Any other questions? Step up to the mic. Yes?
What I'm looking for in Altadena's character is that we are a semi-rural community. We are not downtown. We're not in the middle of, concrete nowhere. We're not at the, the developed beach. And so it's really important that you not only accommodate the horses, but it's dog walkers, the occasional llama walks by, and a lot of people, and there's people in wheelchairs. So that natural substrate idea means we need pathways. And I'm absolutely horrified by some of the things you showed as options where it's concrete and you got a tree in a little box. We need bioswales, we need shade, we need areas that offset the heat, and the natural substrates for bikes, for people's hips and knees who run, for people in wheelchairs. So up in San Luis Obispo, I actually saw on a hill in a natural pathway a young student, engineering student in a wheelchair, talking to a lady, an older woman on her buckskin horse, with another student next to her walking her golden retriever. I mean, it was just the epitome of a mixed group transportation. So please, let's look about how pathways and the environment, because it's not just for people, because the oxygen that trees produce, the shade, we've got to defeat this zero zone nonsense, because the trees, as you can see on Christmas Tree Lane, obviously protected the houses. There's tannins in oaks, there's tannins in redwoods. I mean, there's such a technology there that CAL FIRE and others are not acknowledging, but we want to keep this semi-rural character and bring in the shade and take away the hard concrete that kids fall on or that burn paws, and transform that into something that is walkable and is pleasant, and can also recapture water. So let's make it a multi-purpose kind of
Multi-benefit.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, I would say
Nature.
yes. To be fair to Jonah, he recently went to New York and got really excited about all the stuff he saw. So he wanted to show some photographs, and I'm glad he did.
Yeah,
Quick question, how many people are familiar with the Safe Clean Water program here in LA County? So that's basically the result of Measure W that we all voted on, which is all about stormwater capture. And the beauty of what you're talking about is that there's money available through the county to fund projects like that. And they're literally just waiting for people to present ideas.
And trees giving us carbon credit that the county actually gets money for, I think is very important, and no one's looking at that yet.
Sure. She said the trees credit that the county gets for trees? Carbon credits, yeah. Sure. So, but I would say if you don't know too much about it, check out the Safe Clean Water program, because there's actually projects. I know the city of Pasadena is all over it with multiple projects right now, and it's all about capturing that storm water, because the Army Corps of Engineers way back in the day, because of these massive floods that happened in like the 20s and 30s, they basically channelized everything, and it's very efficient in taking all of this water that comes down when it rains and sending it right out to the ocean. And now they're like, oh wait, we need to find ways to keep it here. And so that's what it's all about. And so yes, what you're talking about, urban heat island effect is very real. And so anything and everything we can do, and with walking and biking, it's way nicer to go down a street that has lots of shade when you're walking and biking than it is, the street right next to where I live, it's all palm trees. I hate it because there's no shade. And I'm thinking when I get older, because I'm not getting any younger, I'd really prefer if there was more shade trees on that street, and I'd be perfectly happy if those palms went away. That's my axe to grind.
Damn palm trees. Cut them down.
I mean, I would just flag, so I agree, that's excellent. I mean, I would just say that, some of these images that I'm showing that you found horrifying, So these go by what's called, and that's okay, it's okay. These go by what's called quick build, right? And the idea is like, what can I do right now with the money that I have? And what I like about projects like this is that they do the first step first, which is reclaim the space from the cars. And then let's see if we can do that and the traffic still moves. Let's see if we can do that and people can still find a place to park. If it doesn't work out, you can tear it back out. If it does work, maybe you leave it in. And then, you know, there's a lot of examples of this where if you can start with a multi-use path with a dirt trail or something, great, let's do that, I'm all for it. But if all I have is $50,000 and I want to do something in 3 months, maybe I try this first. And if it works and people liked it, now I have that space for the humans or the horses or the bikes or whatever it is. And now maybe 2 years from now, 3 years from now, when I get that grant money, now I can rip up the concrete, right? And so, that's the philosophy here that I'm sharing. If you have money and political will and you don't have NIMBY drivers coming out and telling you leave the street the way it is, then yeah, great. Let's put in a multi-use trail today. That would be wonderful. So I hope that helps you understand where I'm coming from.
I just have to say that those temporary buildings without air conditioning at my high school that they brought in and with exactly this premise and we can show them we need it, we can build more cement buildings. Well, guess what? That was 1972 and they're still there today. So there's a certain inertia once you get a project in that doesn't meet the goals or the needs of the constituency.
100%, of course.
Let me add though, it's been a long time since I was in Manhattan, and the pictures shown of the change on Broadway, I'm thrilled by that. And maybe there will be more improvement later, but yeah, reclaiming some of that pavement just